Actors who regret controversial roles they've played. Sarah Paulson received criticism for wearing a fat suit while portraying Linda Tripp in Impeachment: American Crime Story. She said that there's a lot of controversy around actors in fat suits and for legitimate reasons. And she said that fat phobia is real and to pretend it's not causes further harm. She regrets not thinking about this more fully before accepting the role and says it's a choice she would not make again in the future. Eddie Redmayne has expressed regret over playing a trans character in the movie The Danish Girl and says he would not take the role if it was offered to him today. He said though he made the film with the best of intentions, he still believes it was a mistake. Viola Davis has spoken out about deeply regretting her role in the movie The Help, and she said she feels like she betrayed herself and her people because the movie was not ready to tell the whole truth. She also said that many Hollywood movies are not invested in the humanity of Black people and are still catering to a white audience. Finally, Rooney Mara received intense backlash for portraying Tiger Lily in the movie Pan. She said she really hated to be on that side of the whitewashing conversation, and she fully understood why people were upset and frustrated.
Utterly tragic finding. What appears to be a newborn baby boy inside a plastic trash bag. She frantically alerts the nurses who confirm the sickening news. Sadly, there are no signs of life. Officers have just been called to the scene, where medical personnel informed them of the heartbreaking discovery. Police asked to speak with Lexi before being taken to her room, where the shocking truth is only seconds away from being uncovered.
I'm sorry. We discovered a dead baby in the bathroom. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. He came out at me and I didn't know what to do. Lexi, I told you about this. I just asked you, baby, to tell me the truth. Scared. He was not crying or nothing. What did you do to it? Okay, stop right here. Stop. Number one priority, guys. Number one priority. If she just had a baby, I don't know if she's delivered the placenta. She's bleeding significantly. Yeah. I've spoken to the obstetrician at Loveless. They want her up there as soon as possible. Okay. I need your permission to transfer her medicals. She's 19. Oh, you're right. To make sure that you're safe, I need to send you to Loveless to labor delivery. Will you please agree to that? Yes. Okay, great. I'm gonna work on that. I'm sorry about this, but in terms of delivering a baby and it looked like you tried to hide it, we do have to have the police involved. Nothing was crying.
When I looked at that picture, I thought, wow, he looks like a great dad. I was wrong. On August 7, 2021, Abby Coleman was packing up for her family to go on a camping trip. Unbeknownst to her, her husband, Matthew, had already loaded up the kids into the car and left. He left Abby at home. She looked outside the window and was like, did he really just leave with the kids? She phoned him, texted him, nothing. Abby was frustrated and confused. But at that moment, Abby didn't see Matthew as a threat to her kids or to himself, and she actually thought he'd eventually return home. No official missing report was filed. At 8 p.m. that same day, Matthew checks himself and the kids into a hotel in Rosarito. By the following day, Abby was extremely worried, as she should have been. She woke up to her family not back yet. It wasn't like Matthew to be gone that long. And then she thought it wasn't like him to do any of this at all. Still unable to contact her husband, she phones the police. An officer came by the family's home and took an official report. The officer suggested trying to locate Matthew through the Find My iPhone locator app, which is an app where you could find a specific iPhone. She did as the officer said, and she located him. She saw that he was in Rosarito, Mexico. With the missing persons now believed to be in Rosarito, Mexico, the case was handed over to the FBI. The next day, a ranch worker, along with his dog, discovered 2 bodies on his ranch. They were children. This is a graphic description, please be advised. The children's bodies were covered with puncture wounds, at least a dozen on each of them. Authorities said the weapon was believed to have been a sharp wooden stake, which was found at the scene. The 2 children were Kaleo, 2 years old, and Arga, 10 months old. They were Matthew and Abby's children. Hours later, Matthew was intercepted back at the border, attempting to cross back to the United States. He was arrested by U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agents. Matthew admitted to the brutal killing of his 2 children, where he referenced conspiracy theories from the Illuminati. He told authorities that killing his children was the only course of action that would save the world because his wife possessed serpent DNA, and she had passed it on to the children. I don't know what to say about that. Matthew Taylor Coleman was charged with 2 counts of foreign first-degree murder. His trial date has not been released. Rest in peace, you 2 beautiful kids.
Killer in Season 11 of American Horror Story is inspired by a very real case. If you're a Forensic Files fan like myself, then you start to connect the dots. In 1991, a sanitation worker is collecting trash along the New Jersey Turnpike when he picks up a bag so heavy he decides to look inside. When he opens the bag, he finds a human head. Police then arrive on scene and they begin to find more bags of body parts. The body was severed into 7 pieces: 2 arms, 2 legs, upper torso, lower torso, and head. There was ligature marks on both of the victim's wrists suggesting that he was tied up. In one of the bags they find latex gloves, a blood-stained bedsheet, a saw, and a shower curtain, suggesting that this was most likely done in a residence or a hotel. In another bag was the victim's wallet, so there was no indication to try to hide the victim's identity, making it clear that the victim was 56-year-old Thomas Mulcahy, an executive who was in New York on a business trip. He was married for 33 years, he had 4 kids, and the youngest being 18. When the medical examiner reviews his body, it's clear that he was dismembered, but before that he was stabbed. That the bags and body parts were carefully washed before being dumped. This, of course, was to remove the evidence, but this also told police that this was a very personal act because the killer was then taking care of the victim even in death. Police then trace his credit card activity, and they see 2 days before his murder, he withdrew $200 at 11:15 p.m. They go to look at surveillance, and of course the cameras are down, so they have nothing to work with.
That may look like a father and daughter making a run to the liquor store. However, sadly, it's not. It was in the early morning of 4 a.m. in Idaho when 8-year-old Shasta and her 10-year-old brother Dylan were tucked nicely in bed and asleep. Their mom runs into their bedroom, followed by this disheveled-looking man. Their mom woke both of them up and said, "This man doesn't want us to be here." They then followed their mom to the living room, where they saw that the man had zip ties and a shotgun. Shortly after, her mother's boyfriend comes into the room and begs for him to leave. He said they didn't have anything of value really, and the best thing for him to do is to just go. The man then points the gun at the family while he ties them with zip ties. The mom, the boyfriend, and the oldest son, 13-year-old Slade, then Dylan and 8-year-old Shasta were all zip tied. He then put Shasta and Dylan into a separate room. The man attacks the mom, then the boyfriend, and then the eldest brother with a hammer. Dylan and Shasta could hear loud commotion coming from the living room area. Their hearts were pounding and their bodies shaking. As the commotion died down, they start to hear footsteps walking back towards the room they were in. Then the man looks at her and her brother and says, "I have other plans for you two." He then picks them up and puts them in his car. Shasta and Dylan, now in the backseat of this stranger's car, were left wondering the fate of the rest of their family. He drove them hours away to a remote location filled with trees. As they came to a stop, he turned around and showed them both a bloody hammer. He then said to them, "You see this hammer? this is the hammer that I use to kill your family with, and I'll do the same thing with you if you don't do as I say. Meanwhile, back in their hometown, a neighbor stops by their home and notices blood all over the family's front door. The man then phones authorities right away. Authorities arrive at the scene to see 3 bludgeoned bodies: Brenda, her boyfriend, and Slade. Authorities were now on this massive search to find Shasta and Dylan. Back at the remote location in the woods with Shasta and Dylan, they were holding each other, mourning the loss of their family, but also wondering about their own fates. The man grabs Dylan and ties him to a tree where he assaults Dylan while making Shasta watch. And the more Shasta cried and told them to please stop, the more the abuse got worse. When the man was finished, he began to abuse Shasta. After he was finished, he told the children that he was eventually going to let them go and to write to their biological father, telling them that they would be coming home in a couple of weeks, but only if they're good and if they do as he says. Dylan and Shasta were so hopeful. There was still a chance that they would be coming home. However, the letters were never sent. It was just another one of this man's manipulation games. Days turned to weeks and weeks turned to a whole month. During those weeks, they did find out a little bit more about the man, such as his name. His name was Joseph, but people like to call him Jet. They were all sitting around the campfire and he forced the kids to drink and take drugs while he told them about his past crimes. Shasta pretended to take a swig of her drink, but she really was just listening intently and trying to memorize everything that he was saying. So Shasta quickly